Hello everybody, it is Michelle with C Code. Thank you for being here. If you are new here, I am Michelle. I'm a DevOps engineer. I show my progress on my route to becoming a subject matter expert. I show the things that I've learned, the things that I'm currently learning, and the things that I want to learn. I break that down, the technical concepts, and kind of just show you what it looks like to be an engineer. I'm also a founder, and then just somebody who loves learning. So today we are going to be learning something really exciting. We are breaking down something in AWS that everybody needs to know in order to get started. In order to provision resources or anything, you have to have this set up. And today we're breaking down VPCs and Subnets. So as somebody who does not like networking, never liked networking, said I didn't want to learn networking, was like, why do I even need to understand any of it? Because to me, it was just so confusing. Like it was just, I remember when I first started at Lockheed, I had an amazing network engineer who actually helped break down a lot of the concepts there, but it still would be like overwhelming for me. And I realized as a systems engineer, as DevOps, like you have to at least understand both security and networking. So when I get into the cloud, I'm thinking, well, why would I need to know networking or anything about it? Like, I'm not saying you have to be in the ruts of it, but you at least have to have this concept. And so today we're talking about VPCs and subnets, which is a part of networking. So if you've ever tried to deploy something into AWS, but you weren't sure exactly how it connected to things, this video is for you. I'm going to break down what a VPC is, what a subnet is, and why they exist. So every single time you spin something up in the cloud, there's a whole network underneath it holding everything together. And as you're in your AWS journey, your cloud journey, one of the first things you'll see is a VPC. And if you've seen it, just ignored it because it was confusing. It's okay, because this video will help you. Okay, so VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. You can think of it like inside of an apartment building. When you have your apartment, you own that apartment. Nobody else can just walk in and do what they want within your apartment. They could walk within the apartment building, but your apartment is yours. So within your apartment, you decide what rooms exist, who gets access, and how people move around within your apartment. That is a VPC. You can also think of a VPC similarly to you renting out the floor of a building for your company, and that floor is yours. You have the security, you decide who gets access, who can come inside the floor, but the overall building is not yours. So in terms of the cloud, a VPC is an isolated section of your cloud provider's network. So when you and I are working in AWS, you're not working in the same network space that I also am working in. We each have our own isolated network space within AWS's cloud provider. We both get to define our own IP ranges within that network. We both get to decide what can talk to what get exposes to the internet, and what remains internal. And honestly, that's the overall point of the VPC. It's to make sure that there's control and there's isolation. Now that we understand what a VPC is, the next thing is that we need to make sure we understand IP ranges and IP addresses. This is where something called a CIDR block came into, is it CIDR? CIDR blocks. This is where they come into play. And as somebody who, like I said, networking is not my thing, was not my thing. It's still not my favorite thing. This confused me a lot in the beginning, but now I feel like I get it. CIDR stands for classless inter-domain routing. A CIDR block is a way of defining a range of IP addresses using shorthand notation. And that's just some words, so let's break this down. So I want you to think of a CIDR block as a zip code. A zip code defines a specific region. Within that region, we have streets, names, and we have addresses. So your CIDR block actually works in that same way. Your CIDR block defines the ranges of IP addresses that your network can actually use. And your subnet is the individual streets carved out within that range. Okay, so you would see something like 10.0.0.0/16. The first part, the 10.0.0.0 is the starting IP address. The /16 tells you how many IP addresses within that range you have. The smaller the number after the slash, the more addresses you have. So for an example, /16 would have more addresses than /25. And I want you to understand something, this is just a quick pause, that these are things you don't have to memorize. Like you can always look up like how many addresses are in 10.0/16. Like these are things that the more you use it, the more you'll remember. But I don't want you to feel like it becomes, I think what becomes overwhelming about tech, engineering, DevOps, everything is when you feel like you have to memorize this stuff. And as somebody who does not do memorization, this is the key for me, knowing that I can look things up. What is important throughout this is to make sure you understand concepts, but you can always just look it up, Google it. Okay, so back to the VPCs. So when you create a VPCs, you pick a CIDR block. So that becomes the total amount of IP addresses your network can use. So then on top of all of that, you create something called subnets that are within the VPC, and each subnet gets a smaller CIDR block that is carved out for them within that pool. So what are subnets? So if we go back and we know that a VPC is the floor within the overall building, then a subnet is the individual room on that floor. Subnets are smaller chunks of the VPC's IP range. We create the subnets to control our resources and also control how they communicate with each other and the outside world. So there's two types of subnets. There's a public subnet and then there's a private subnet. So a public subnet connects to the internet. internet. Resources that you put within the public subnet can be reached from the internet, from the outside world. An example is like a web server that users need to hit, users need to be able to get to. So a private subnet has no direct internet access. So what you put there is only accessible within your private network. So something that you would put within a private subnet would be something like, let's say, a database. So things that you don't want exposed to the internet, you would place there. So if we go back to the floor, our company owns the floor. The individual rooms are the subnets. So why does any of this even matter? It matters because a VPC is actually not even really optional. Any resource that you deploy in AWS lives within the VPC. It lives within some type of subnet. You need to make that decision. And another reason why this matters is because when you don't understand the networking setup, when things break, it sometimes can break in a way that's hard for you to debug because you're not understanding how one thing talks to the other. And then it also is important because some things can be accessible to the public that was never meant to be. Like imagine if one of your private rooms on your company floor in your apartment was open to the public that somebody could just walk into. That would be scary. And the same thing when it comes to our VPCs, when it comes to our network. Now, I'm not saying I'm a network guru, but I am saying that starting to have an understanding of VPCs, subnets, and in general, how things talk to each other, it helped me build intentionally on my way to becoming a SME. And it makes it so that debugging is a lot easier. And if you know me, you know that I always say troubleshooting debugging is the #1 skill for any type of engineer, any type of techie, anybody in DevOps. So let's recap. Your VPC is a private network in the cloud. Your CIDR block defines the total IP addresses range for that network. And your subnets divide that network into sections, some public and some private, each with their own slice of that range. I hope this was helpful. And if it was, make sure y'all drop a comment and let me know. Make sure you like and subscribe. And make sure you stay tuned because in the next video, I'm going to discuss what a load balancer is. Now that we understand the overall network, we need to discuss how traffic gets in and out of it. Anyways, this is where I am on my roadmap to becoming a subject matter expert. Comment and let me know where you guys are too. Also, make sure that you click the link down in the description as I have a free DevOps roadmap that shows you what to learn, when to learn it, and why. See y'all in the next video.